Hi, this is the Between Us channel. If you've been here before, I'm glad to see you again. If this is your first time here, thank you for stopping by. Let's start today's story. Without a word, I signed the documents and completely disappeared from her life. 8 years. That's how long I spent building her future, while leaving my own behind in oblivion. I worked double shifts to pay for her studies at medical university. We ate frozen dinners because she was always buried in textbooks. I cancelled vacation after vacation so she could focus on her exams. And for 8 years I kept hearing, when I finish my studies, everything will be different. Graduation day was on a Thursday in May. I asked for a day off at work to be there, even bought a new shirt. This was supposed to be our big moment, our shared victory, the beginning of our life finally moving forward. I sat in the crowded auditorium and watched her walk across the stage. When her name was called, I stood up and applauded louder than anyone. 8 years of sacrifice, and finally it paid off. At least that's what I thought. After the ceremony, around noon, families were taking photos, celebrating, planning dinner, while I waited by the car as she posed with her classmates, holding her diploma like it was her golden ticket. When she finally came over, I was expecting hugs, kisses, maybe even just a simple thank you. Instead, she handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Divorce papers," she replied, as if she were talking about the weather. "I've already signed my part."
I looked at the envelope. Then I looked at her. She wasn't joking. Her voice was calm. Her face showed nothing. This wasn't some sudden decision. It was planned. "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious," she said. "Look, I don't need you anymore. I have my degree. I've got job offers. I have a future. You helped during school, but that chapter's over." Helpful. That's all I was to her. Helpful. 8 years of my life boiled down to one word. What was I, a scholarship? She just shrugged. "You knew what this was. I told you from the beginning. Medical school came first. Now I'm a doctor, and I want a clean slate. No dead weight." Dead weight. That's what 8 years of marriage meant to her. Some of her classmates started to gather nearby, probably curious about our conversation. I recognized a few from the rare social events she let me attend. They all knew me as the guy who worked extra shifts so their friend could chase her dreams. I opened the envelope. Everything was already filled out. Assets divided, her choice of car claimed, the apartment listed under her name since she'd be earning doctor money now. I was getting only what the law required, the bare minimum. "You've really thought this through, haven't you?" "I'm not dumb. I know exactly what I want." I looked at the crowd around us, at the woman I'd supported for nearly a decade, and realized she'd already moved on. So, I reached into my jacket, pulled out a pen, and signed every page, right there in the parking lot, in front of all her classmates. "There," I said, handing the papers back. "Congrats on your graduation and your divorce." Her mouth dropped. She expected drama, maybe some pleading, at least a fight, but all she got was calm acceptance. "Wait, that's it? You're not going to argue? Try to change my mind?" Why would I fight for someone who just called me dead weight? Then I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, diploma in one hand, signed divorce papers in the other. Behind me, I heard whispers ripple through her friends. I didn't stop, didn't shout, didn't look back. I just walked out of that parking lot and out of her life. The last thing I heard before turning the corner was someone asking, "Who was that guy?" "And why did he just walk away from his own car?" someone asked behind me. I didn't slow down. She wanted a fresh start with no dead weight. Perfect, because she was about to learn what I'd actually been carrying all those years. 3 days after that graduation parking lot scene, I was gone. Not just out of the apartment, out of the state. While she was probably waiting for me to come back with apologies and flowers, I was pulling off the cleanest, disappearing act of my life. The advantage of being married to someone who never paid attention to money was simple. She had no idea what I really controlled. She assumed she was keeping the apartment because she'd be making doctor money. What she didn't know was that for the last 2 years, the rent had been coming from my personal account, not our joint one. And the lease? It was in my name only. Those 3 days, I moved fast. I closed our joint accounts and transferred my share to a new bank she'd never heard of. I canceled the utilities that were under my name, switched my phone number to a new carrier. I even canceled the streaming subscription she loved so much. By Saturday morning, I was loading up my pickup truck with the things that actually mattered to me. Clothes, tools, my grandmother's china she never cared about, and my vintage record collection she always complained took up too much space. My destination was Portland, Oregon, not because I had roots there, but because I didn't. A clean slate. A city where no one knew my past, and no one would think to look for me. The apartment I found was basic. A 1-bedroom about 15 minutes from downtown, a view of a parking lot instead of a skyline. But it was mine. Completely. Legally. Financially. Finding a job took less than a week. Construction management for a mid-sized company that handled commercial projects. The pay was solid. The hours were normal. And no one asked about my personal life. Exactly what I needed. Back in our old city, she was discovering what her fresh start really looked like. The first problem came when she tried to pay rent. Turns out, I'm going to be a doctor isn't accepted as payment. When the electricity shut off 3 days later, followed by the internet, it finally clicked. I hadn't been dead weight. I'd been the foundation. Her texts started during the first week. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. You can't just disappear. I deleted every message without opening them. Week 2 brought phone calls, 27 in 1 day. I let them all go to voicemail, then deleted the voicemails without listening. If she had something important to say, she could say it through a lawyer. By week 3, she was calling my old coworkers, trying to track me down. My former supervisor called to warn me that a frantic woman claiming to be my wife had shown up at the office. I thanked him and told him I didn't have a wife. Month 2 was when panic really set in. She tried to use me as a reference for an apartment application, only to find my old number was disconnected. She contacted my sister, my parents, even an old college roommate. Each of them got the same response from me. I don't know anyone by that name. The most desperate move came in month 3. Somehow, she tracked down my new employer and called the main office, claiming there was a family emergency. My boss passed the message along. I told him the truth. There was no family emergency. I had no family by that name. He understood and quietly blocked her number. What she never realized was how much I was enjoying my new life. Portland fit me. The coffee was better. People minded their own business. And no one expected me to sacrifice my present for someone else's future. I joined a local hiking group that met every weekend, started taking evening classes in project management, even began dating again. Nothing serious at first, just learning how to enjoy conversations that didn't revolve around exam schedules or med school stress. I met someone at a coffee shop inside a bookstore. She was everything my ex-wife wasn't. A graphic designer with a solid career, she paid for her own meals and actually cared about what I had to say. When I mentioned I'd recently gotten divorced, she simply nodded and said, "Good for you for knowing when to walk away." No drama, no lectures, no talk of fixing things. Just honest acceptance that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is move forward. By month 6, I stopped checking for messages from my ex altogether. My life no longer followed her rhythm, her needs, or her preferences. I had my own. Wake up at 6. Coffee and the morning news. Work from 7 to 4. Hit the gym or go hiking after. Dinner with friends or a quiet night at home with a good book. Simple. Peaceful. Mine. And the irony. While she was probably telling her colleagues about her exciting new life as a single doctor, I was the one actually living it. No more being treated like a temporary convenience. No more dragging around someone else's version of ambition. She wanted a clean slate. I gave it to her, along with something unexpected. Total silence. An empty space where I used to be. 3 years into my life in Portland, I was happier than I'd ever been during 8 years of marriage. What I didn't know then was that 3 years into her medical career, my ex-wife was learning just how funny life could be. I heard about it later from a mutual acquaintance who couldn't help but share the gossip. Her fresh start? Let's just say it didn't go quite as planned. Turns out, becoming a doctor isn't instant money and prestige, especially when you're just starting out. Her residency paycheck barely matched what I was earning in construction, and she now had 6-figure student loan debt hanging over her. Debt that had once been our problem until she filed for divorce. The apartment she'd claimed in the settlement? A financial disaster. Without my income, she struggled to keep up with rent, utilities, and groceries. Burned through her savings before her first residency check even cleared. Within 6 months, she had to bring in 2 roommates just to stay afloat. From what I heard, those roommates weren't thrilled when they found out she'd left her husband right after graduation, especially once they realized they were covering expenses she'd planned to pay with that doctor money that wasn't showing up fast enough. Her work hours were brutal. 80-hour weeks, overnight shifts, on-call weekends that replaced the social life she thought she'd have. Her vision of being a thriving independent doctor had turned into squeezing in naps between rounds and living off vending machine snacks and hospital cafeteria food. Meanwhile, I was thriving. The company I worked for promoted me to senior project manager. My income had jumped significantly, and I was managing some of the biggest commercial builds in Portland. I bought a modest house with a decent yard. Nothing fancy, but it was all mine. No shared mortgage, no joint bank accounts, no asking for permission before making a purchase. The hiking group had become my core community. Rain or shine, we explored trails every weekend across Oregon and Washington. I was in the best shape of my life, had a great group of friends, and, for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. And the woman I'd met at the bookstore? She'd become something more than just casual. We'd been together for over a year, taking things slow, no pressure. She respected that I wasn't ready to rush into anything after my divorce. What she didn't know was just how refreshing it felt to be with someone who met me halfway. No one treating me like a walking wallet. No one expecting me to carry the weight of the entire relationship. She had her own house, her own car, and her own savings. When we went out, she insisted we split the check. If I cooked dinner at my place, she'd show up with wine and dessert. When she hosted, I brought flowers and took care of cleanup. Everything felt equal, easy, and mutual. But meanwhile, things were taking a different turn for my ex-wife. Her breaking point came during her 2nd year of residency. Her car gave out, major engine trouble that would cost more to fix than the car was worth. Back when we were married, that kind of crisis would have fallen to me. I'd have figured out a way, found financing, negotiated with a mechanic, maybe even called in a favor from family. Now, she was on her own, maxed out credit cards, no savings. She had to rely on public transportation for 3 months before she finally got approved for a loan on a used car. The payments ate up a big chunk of her already stretched budget. That's when reality hit her. The dead weight she threw away? Turns out, I was the one quietly holding everything together, and that realization lit a fire. The real search began. First, she tried social media. but I deleted all my old accounts and never opened new ones using my real name. Then came the messages to mutual friends. But after the divorce, most people had picked sides. And her side didn't win. Eventually, she got desperate enough to hire a private investigator, dropped $1,000 she couldn't spare. He found old addresses, past jobs, even tried contacting my relatives. None of it led anywhere. The breakthrough came during her 3rd year of residency, when she crossed a serious line. Using her access to medical databases, she started scanning hospital employment records across multiple states. She figured I might pop up if I stayed in construction and ever needed medical care. It was a long shot, but it worked. A routine physical I'd done through my company's health plan had generated a record, flagging my name at a hospital in Portland, Oregon, tied to a major construction firm. That was enough. After 3 years of dead ends, she finally had a lead. She knew where to look. What she didn't realize was this: the man she was searching for didn't exist anymore. Not the way she remembered him. I wasn't the guy who worked double shifts to pay tuition. I wasn't the man who stood quietly while being dismissed as helpful and dead weight. I was someone new, someone who'd rebuilt his life from the ground up, someone who had proven just how wrong she'd been about what I was worth. I'd moved so far beyond our past that her name barely came up in my thoughts anymore. She was about to learn that when you throw away something valuable, you don't get to come back 3 years later and ask for it back. The first call came on a Tuesday morning in March. 17 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. Then the text started. "I know you're getting these. We need to talk. I made a mistake. I want to fix it. Please just call me back." I didn't open a single one, just deleted them straight from the preview. After 3 years of silence, I had no interest in whatever personal crisis had suddenly brought me back to her mind. The calls didn't stop. 2 weeks. New numbers. Probably using coworkers' phones or random contacts to get around being blocked. I blocked every number as soon as I recognized the pattern. 17 calls on Tuesday, 23 on Wednesday, 31 on Thursday. Each day more frantic than the last. Then she changed tactics. My work phone rang late Friday afternoon. I was on site, reviewing blueprints, when the receptionist from our main office called. "Hey, there's a woman here saying she's your wife. She claims there's a family emergency and that she needs to speak with you right away." "What does she look like?" I asked. The description was spot on. My ex-wife had somehow tracked down my employer and driven all the way to Portland. She was sitting in our lobby at that very moment, probably inventing some urgent medical crisis to force contact. "Tell her you couldn't reach me," I said calmly. "Say I'm out of state on a project for the next 2 weeks. Take her contact info and let her know someone will follow up." "Got it," the receptionist said. "Do you actually want to call her back?" "No." About an hour later, my supervisor called with an update. She'd waited in the lobby for nearly 3 hours, repeatedly asking if I'd checked in or shown up at any job site. When it became obvious I wasn't coming, she left her number and a handwritten note. "What did the note say?" I asked. "Something about how you two need to talk about your future together. She was pretty upset when she realized we weren't going to help her find you." "Thanks for handling it professionally," I said. "No problem," he replied. "We get situations like this sometimes. I'll flag her information in case she shows up again." She didn't come back to the office, but she didn't leave Portland either. Apparently, she spent the entire weekend driving around the city, scanning apartment complexes and restaurant parking lots, looking for my truck. Sunday evening, one of my hiking friends called. "Hey, just a heads up," he said. "A woman matching your ex's description approached me at a coffee shop, said she was looking for her estranged husband, showed me a photo on her phone. I didn't tell her anything, but she seemed intense, said she'd been searching for 3 years." Thanks for telling me, I said. If she asks again, you've never heard of me. Understood. Monday brought a new approach. She'd figured out I lived somewhere in Portland and decided to cast a wide net. She posted in neighborhood Facebook groups, on community apps, even in online classifieds. Same message every time. Looking for my husband. We lost touch after my medical residency. Please help me reconnect. My girlfriend showed me one of the posts Tuesday night. We were cooking dinner when she pulled it up on her phone. This is strange, she said. Some woman is posting all over Portland trying to find her husband. The photo looks old, and the whole thing sounds desperate. I looked at the screen. It was a picture of me from years ago, probably taken during some dinner I barely remembered. The caption read like a regret-filled plea, packed with promises and second chances. Sounds like someone who doesn't understand that some bridges can't be rebuilt once they're burned, I said. She nodded. The comments are brutal. Most people are saying that if her husband wanted to be found, he wouldn't have disappeared this completely. She was right. The replies were full of strangers pointing out the obvious. People don't vanish unless they have a reason. Several women shared stories about ex-partners who went no contact, and the consensus was clear. This kind of silence only comes after real damage. Then came Wednesday. The most desperate move yet. She found my address. I pulled into my driveway after work and saw her sitting in her car across the street. She'd been there long enough to draw attention. Mrs. Chun, my neighbor from across the way, waved me down as I parked. That woman's been parked there since noon, Mrs. Chun said. She's been asking everyone who walks by if they know you. I told her, I've never seen you before in my life. Thanks, I said. If she approaches you again, feel free to call the police. Just report suspicious behavior. I parked in the garage and slipped into the house through the side door, avoiding any contact. She knew I was home now, which meant a confrontation was inevitable. The doorbell started around 7:00 p.m. Long, aggressive rings, non-stop for 2 minutes at a time, then pounding, then more ringing. I ignored it all, ate dinner, read my book, stayed calm. Around 9:00, the yelling started. I know you're in there. I saw your truck in the garage. We need to talk about this like adults. I drove 16 hours to get here. I'm not leaving until you at least listen to me. Porch lights flipped on up and down the block. My quiet neighborhood was getting a front row seat to a live soap opera. I called the police non-emergency line. I'd like to report someone trespassing and disturbing the peace at my home. It's my ex-wife. She's been here for hours and refuses to leave. The officer arrived about 20 minutes later. I watched through the blinds as he talked to her on the porch. She was animated, lots of hand gestures, probably spinning some story about long-lost love and fate. Then he knocked. Sir, the woman says she's your ex-wife. She claims she needs to speak with you about something important. Are you willing to talk to her? No, officer. We've been divorced for 3 years. I don't want any communication with her. I'd like her removed from my property. Understood. I'll let her know she needs to leave you alone. From the window, I watched him walk back to her car. This conversation looked firmer. She didn't argue. Just got in her car and drove off. No glances back, no parting words. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Unknown. Number. The police can't stop me from loving you. I'll wait as long as it takes. I took a screenshot and added it to the file I'd started. If things escalated, I wanted every detail documented. 3 years of silence. Now 2 weeks of chaos. She'd found me. But finding someone and reconnecting with them? 2 different things. That point became crystal clear the following Saturday. I was at Home Depot, loading lumber into my truck for a backyard deck project. That's when I heard her voice behind me. Please don't walk away. Just give me 5 minutes. I turned around. She stood about 10 feet away, pale, thin, exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. She looked like someone running on fumes and desperation. 5 minutes for what? I asked. To apologize, to explain, to ask for another chance. I closed the tailgate and looked her in the eyes. You had 8 years of chances, I said. You used them all up in a parking lot 3 years ago. I was under so much pressure. Medical school was overwhelming. I said things I didn't mean. I've regretted it every day since. Which part? I asked. Calling me dead weight, or realizing that so-called dead weight was the only thing keeping your life steady. She flinched. I never should have said those things, she whispered. I was scared. I thought to prove I could make it as a doctor, I had to be completely independent. No help, no ties. How's that working out for you? Her jaw tightened. It's been harder than I expected. The hours, the debt, the pressure. It's not what I thought it would be. And now I see. I gave up the best thing in my life for a version of success that wasn't real. I leaned back against my truck, crossed my arms. So let me get this straight. When you thought success and money were guaranteed, you tossed me aside like I didn't matter. And now that reality hit harder than expected. I'm suddenly the best thing that ever happened to you? That's not how it was, she said quietly. That's exactly how it was, I replied. You said it yourself. You didn't need me anymore. I was helpful during school, but that chapter was over. Remember? She stared at the ground. I was wrong. Yeah, I said. You were wrong about a lot of things. I know I hurt you, she whispered. But we can fix this. We had something good. Before medical school took over everything. We can get that back. I almost laughed. We never had something good, I said. I spent 8 years being your emotional and financial support system while you chased a dream. You spent 8 years enjoying free labor while you figured out your career. Those are 2 very different relationships. That's not fair. Oh, you want to talk about fair? I asked. You got exactly what you wanted, a fresh start with no dead weight. And I got what I earned after years of being taken for granted, a life where I'm appreciated. I value you, she said quickly. I always valued you. No, I said. You valued what I provided. That's not the same thing. She stepped closer, eyes glossy with tears. I love you. I've always loved you. I just got my priorities mixed up. No, you didn't get confused. You finally told the truth. For the first time in 8 years, you were honest about how little I meant to you. The only thing that's changed now is your situation. People change, she said. I've changed. Have you? I asked. Or are you just struggling because being an adult turned out harder than you thought? She stayed quiet for a long time, then asked softly, What can I do to prove I'm different? Nothing, I said, because I'm different now too. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not the man you left 3 years ago. That guy, the one who worked double shifts to pay your bills, he's gone. The man who sat quietly while being called dead weight, he doesn't exist anymore. You're talking to someone entirely new. I don't believe that. People don't just change overnight. No, they don't. But people do change, especially when they have to rebuild their life from the ground up. She looked stunned, but I kept going. Want to know what I've learned over the past 3 years? She nodded slowly. I've learned that I'm actually great company when I'm not constantly carrying someone else's stress. I've learned I have interests, hobbies, peace of mind, all things I never had when my world revolved around med school deadlines. Her face flushed deeper with each sentence. I've learned that when you're with someone who has their own life, career, and independence, the relationship becomes a partnership, not a charity. I've learned that mutual respect actually exists when both people pull their own weight. "You're dating someone?" she asked, voice cracking. "I'm engaged." The word hit her like a slap. She staggered back, hand pressed to her chest. "Engaged?" "3 months ago," I said. "We're getting married in September." "But we're still married." "No, we're not," I said firmly. "You divorced me, remember? Signed the papers. Efficiently, I might add. I mean, we could still, if you wanted to try again." "I don't. I just—" She paused. "I thought maybe I want to keep moving forward with someone who chose me when she had choices, not someone who only wants me now because her other options didn't work out." She started crying, really crying now. "This isn't how this was supposed to go." "How was it supposed to go?" I asked. "You were supposed to forgive me. I thought if I could just find you and explain. You thought I'd be sitting around, waiting for you to realize what you lost, like I was just paused, frozen in time, until you needed me again." She didn't answer, but her face said everything. "You know," I said, "here's what you never understood about me. I don't wait around for people to realize my worth. When you threw me away, I took you at your word, and I moved on, completely. The man you're looking for," I continued, "he's married now, to someone who's appreciated him from day one." "I could appreciate you now," she said softly. "Too late," I said. "Someone already does." I opened my truck door and got in. She just stood there, hoping I'd change my mind, hoping for some sliver of forgiveness, or maybe a chance to go back. Instead, I rolled down the window and gave her one final piece of advice. "Next time you find something valuable, don't throw it away just because you think you've found something better. Most people only get to make that mistake once." Then I drove off, leaving her standing in the same stunned silence I'd seen on her face 3 years ago when I signed those divorce papers. Only this time, she understood exactly what she'd lost. 2 weeks after the Home Depot encounter, she made one last attempt. She showed up at my job again, this time with a new story. Told the receptionist she was a doctor with urgent medical news about my health, said it required immediate attention. My supervisor called me into his office. "Your ex is back," he said. "This time, she's claiming it's a medical emergency. Want me to call security?" "Actually," I said, "I'll handle it myself." I walked out to the lobby. There she was, still in her scrubs, probably straight from a night shift, but now she looked worse, like she'd been living on caffeine and denial. "Medical emergency?" I asked. "I needed to see you." "And you thought pretending to be here for urgent health information was the right way to do it?" "I am a doctor," she said. "You're also a liar," I replied. "There's no emergency, is there?" She shook her head, tears already starting. "Here's what's going to happen," I said calmly. "I'm giving you 2 things, and after this, we're done forever." I reached into my jacket and pulled out an envelope. "First, this is a restraining order. Any more contact, texts, calls, showing up at my job or house, using friends, fake emergencies, it becomes a legal issue." Her hands trembled as she took it. "Second, this is for you." I handed her a second envelope, elegantly sealed, thick cardstock. Inside was my wedding invitation. My name and my fiancé's name were printed in clean, beautiful script. A September date. A Portland venue. "I want you to understand something clearly," I said. "I'm not starting to move on. I've already moved on. Fully. Completely. The life I'm building now has nothing to do with the life we had." She stared at the invitation like it might disappear if she blinked. "My fiancé knows everything. She knows about our marriage, the divorce, even your recent attempts to come back into my life. She's not threatened by you," I continued, Because she gets something you never did. What's that? She asked quietly. That when someone chooses you every day, without needing to be rescued or reminded of your worth, that builds a very different kind of relationship. At that moment, security arrived. The receptionist must have quietly called them when she sensed the situation. "These gentlemen are going to walk you out," I said. "And if I ever see you again, if I hear from you again, if you contact anyone in my life again, the next conversation will be with my lawyer and the police." She was crying harder now, holding both the restraining order and the wedding invitation like they might fall apart if she let go. "I know I made mistakes," she said, "but this feels cruel." "Cruel," I said, "would be letting you think there was hope. Pretending 3 years of rebuilding my life could be undone with a tearful apology. This is just the truth." "I love you," she whispered. "No," I replied. "You think you do. But love isn't something you discover when you're desperate. Love is what you build, when you have choices." The security guards stepped forward. She didn't resist, just let them guide her to the door. At the threshold, she paused and turned back one last time. "Will you ever forgive me?" she asked. "I already have," I said. "That's how I was able to move on." She left after that, and I never saw her again. 6 months later, I married my fiancée in a small, beautiful ceremony, surrounded by people who had seen me rebuild my life from the ground up. People who knew the version of me that had come out stronger, wiser, and finally whole. During our vows, I promised to choose her every day, not just when it was easy or convenient. She promised me the same, and in that moment, I understood something deeply. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about living so fully, so peacefully, that the people who once let you go come to realize they gave up something they'll never get back.
My ex-wife said she wanted to start over from scratch without any extra baggage, so I gave her exactly that, and in doing so, I created something better than anything we ever had together. She ultimately received exactly what she had requested, and I finally obtained the outcome that I truly deserved. We were both finally liberated, just in entirely different ways. Sometimes stories can be too harsh, but you have to find a way out. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening to this story. I look forward to seeing you again in the next exciting stories very soon.